breaking news story for you from GB News now. Mark White exclusive, because a record number of small boat migrants are set to cross the English Channel today again, just days after the largest number this year made the illegal journey. Well, GB News' provisional figures show around 700 migrants arrived in UK waters today, surpassing the previous one-day record of 656 migrant arrivals that happened just on Saturday. Well, joining me now is the man with this scoop. It's GB News' home and security editor, Mark White. Mark, yet more grim reading for Britain and grim reading for the Prime Minister.
There's no doubt this is a real disaster for that smash the gangs policy, and we can confirm that the one-day record for the year so far has indeed now been broken. We've just heard from our producer Chris down in Dover, who does such sterling work for us, that so far 669 small boat migrants have come into Dover Harbour so far today. That surpasses the 656 migrants who crossed and made a one-day record just on Saturday there. Now, I say that 669 is the figure so far today, and that's because another small boat is out there. We've been monitoring it for the last hour, and it is making slow but steady progress towards UK waters. Now, initial reports suggested there were another 70 migrants on board. Now, that number can fluctuate a little bit by 10 or 15 or whatever, but regardless, it's probably going to be over 50 on that boat. So we're well over 700 for the day. And as you said in your introduction there, Martin, this is no doubt grim reading for the Prime Minister here, because the fact is he has bet the house on an approach which is a law and order approach alone, a law enforcement approach, going after the criminal gangs, trying to dismantle them. And they've paraded some of their successes, the National Crime Agency and other law enforcement agencies arresting people smugglers and also arresting and disrupting supply lines. But given the fact that every time the weather improves just a bit in the channel to be able to let these boats cross, and they're coming across in ever greater numbers than they ever have since the beginning of this crisis, that must tell you something, that over 9 months down the line from the start of the Labour government, this law enforcement approach alone just isn't cutting the mustard.
And Mark White, so often in the past, the Keir Starmer said, I understand the war on drugs. Well, Mark White, you and I also understand the war on drugs. It's a drug you can't win. No government on the planet has ever won the war on drugs. In fact, you could argue it's never been easy to get hold of them. And if you whack the mole, another mole will pop up. There'll always be another Mr. Big waiting to take the place of anybody who's running these gangs. I put it to you, Mark White, this notion, it sounds great. Stopping the boats also sounds great, but in reality, the gangs will simply be replaced by another one, and Downing Street will be scratching its head severely and thinking, this ain't working.
You make an excellent point. That is what they're up against. It's just like the very organised criminal networks that have been in play for years, involved in that international drug trade. Make no mistake about this. This isn't just a Channel crisis. This is an international people smuggling endeavour that has criminal networks right around the world involved in sending migrants across Europe, and many of them to the UK. We can bring you some more video that we've obtained. This is from a migrant boat in the middle of the channel. You can see it there. And just watching it before as I did, there's an individual on there speaking in Arabic, saying inshallah, God willing, clearly for their journey across the channel. This footage taken of one of the record number of migrants arriving today, as Downing Street, as I say, can only watch this and really just put their heads in their hands as to where they go from here, because, you know, they scrapped the Rwanda deal. Whatever the critics said about the Rwanda deal, and there's no doubt hundreds of millions of pounds were spent on that deal, and no migrants other than a few volunteers had ever been sent. But that's because it was just mired in legal court appeal after legal appeal, but they got through, we're told, the last of those appeals. They were within a week or so of actually being able to get the first flights off the ground. But you could argue it's ideological reasons, whatever the reasons, the Labour government decided they weren't going to do it. They weren't even going to give it a shot. And they scrapped it. Keir Starmer scrapped it on his first day in office. And now the consequence of just going for the law enforcement approach alone is demonstrably it's not working so far. Now, it might work in a year or 2 or 3 if they have enormous successes. But to be honest, I don't think it will. As you said just before there, Martin, it's like trying to smash the drug smuggling trade. It's a next to impossible task without a deterrent that shows people that if they do cross illegally, they don't get to stay.
And Mark White, I mean, more excellent reporting from you, by the way. Thank you very, very much for shining a light on this. And thank you for breaking this exclusively on the show. But I'm struck by the brazen nature of these guys on the boats. We're sold this story, they're fleeing a war zone. They're like the Jolly Boys on tour. It's like a holiday video, and they're brazenly advertising this on TikTok, selling these trips for thousands of pounds. That, to me, looks like people, how do I put this politely, on daytime television, totally taking the mickey.
Well, listen, it's part of the promotional process for the people smuggling gangs. They're highly professionalised now in the way that they operate, you know, down to the fact that they even employ people to give them up-to-date, hour by hour weather assessments across the channel. And one of the other things that they're very good at is marketing. So they will give a discount to some of those migrants if they shoot and make sort of TikTok and other type videos on their crossing, and especially on the other side, if they show the luxurious surrounds of a nice 4-star hotel that they might be in, because they know, the people smuggling gangs, that that's a pull factor for those coming across the channel. So they're incentivized to do that, and that's what we're seeing here. Posted on a social media account showing that here we are, we're making the crossing. There will no doubt be other social media videos popping up from today's record crossings showing that, you know, this is how you do it. You are guaranteed now, when you're in the water, the French aren't going to go near you. In fact, that's not quite true, Martin. They will go near you, and this is what's happened, we believe, with this boat that's remaining that still has to come across the channel. It's being escorted by a French patrol vessel, the Mink. One of the fast rib craft from that vessel was up close to the migrant vessel. Now, it may have taken some off if it was particularly overcrowded, but more likely what they're doing, because we're told that none of those on board that vessel had life jackets, so they're probably handing them life jackets for the journey across. They will say they're doing the most responsible thing, given just how dangerous and precarious that crossing is. But it could be well argued that actually what is happening here is that these migrants are being enabled. They're being shown that if you don't have life jackets, don't worry, you'll get your life jackets from the French. And they'll also escort you through the busy shipping lanes to make sure that you encounter no harm.
Mark White, a fabulous but grim exclusive. Thank you very, very much for sharing that with us here on GB News. Keep up the good work. Thank you very, very much, Mark White.
This video is sponsored by Saily. Saily is a brand new eSIM service app. What it does is get you a local SIM card that you can use when you're traveling, so you don't have to pay those crazy roaming fees just to send a text back home. They've got eSIM plans in over 160 countries and 8 regions, so pretty much wherever you're going, they'll be able to make sure you're connected. So how does it work? Well, all you've got to do is hit our link in the description to download the app. It will work on iOS or Android. Buy a plan, you can choose the best time frame for you, and then just install the eSIM on your phone. When you land at your holiday destination, you can activate your plan instantly. Saily eSIMs only ever have to be installed once, so when you go on your next trip, you just buy a plan for a new country, turn that eSIM back on, and just like that, you could be watching the GB News YouTube channel. You can be connected anywhere you go, and you don't have to deal with patchy Wi-Fi in your hotels. So get sorted for your next trip by downloading Saily using the link in the description below. And if you use our code NEWS at checkout, you'll get an exclusive 15% discount on us.
Well, now, one senior maritime security source told GB News this is an absolute disaster for Labour's border security policy, and are now joined in the studio by GB News reporter Adam Cherry. Adam, there's no dressing this up. Like earlier on in the show, we were talking about 68% of people believe that Britain is broken. There's no surer sign of a country that's at breaking point than one that simply cannot control its borders. This is a never-ending issue.
Yeah, and I think when the rubber hits the road on this problem, politicians of all stripes seem to sit back and go, wow, this is much more difficult than we thought. So we had Stop the Boats under Rishi Sunak, now we have Smash the Gangs. Rishi Sunak, once he was out of office, said, you know what, it was a mistake to even say Stop the Boats. I was never going to achieve it. And now here we have the same problem, even worse, actually, under this government. Yvette Cooper saying, the Home Secretary saying, look, when the weather gets a little bit better, this will probably get worse. And well, fine, but that's going to happen every year. And now you're seeing just extraordinary, using it as marketing material. Yeah. And, you know, that we even had social media companies with the government, I think it was just last week, and they're talking about trying to crack down on this because they've realised that even that is a massive problem. They're so brazen about it. They know they can get away with it. They might as well just broadcast it all over Facebook, TikTok or whatever. It's unbelievable.
The fact of the matter is those boys were in the channel, you know, today. Yeah. And now it's on social media. They're having a little sing-song on the boat as they come over. That does not look like a government in control of its borders. Adam Cherry, thank you very, very much. Got to move on now. Speak with the political commentator and immigration expert, Mike Jones. Mike, simply beggars belief. We've become so almost immune to this. It feels like, just another day in clown world. But this is another grim tally that's been beaten, another record for a day, and let's be honest, more brazen celebration by those on the small boats.
Yeah, you become desensitized to it after a while, and many more records will be smashed during Labour's time in office because the gangs are smashing Sir Keir Starmer rather than the other way around. Now, as Mark White pointed out, Keir Starmer has adopted a law and order approach. I'm not against that, but the law and order approach is to detain and deport, not stop the boats, not smash the gangs, it's detain and deport. But to do that, you need two things. First of all, you need to reopen detention centres. And number two, you need to amend or abolish the Human Rights Act. You need a legal architecture there that's working with the Home Office, not against it. But at this moment in time, the Home Office is like a Potemkin institution. It has no real power. All of that power lies with the judges and the human rights lawyers. And, Sir Keir Starmer can try as much as he wants to smash the gangs, but it's not going to happen.
And Mike Jones, here we are once again having that conversation about craft supplying life jackets. It's not an enforcement service. It's not even a rescue service. It feels more like a taxi service.
Pretty much, but, that's the UN Convention of the Laws of the Sea, UNCLOS. But basically, boats have to operate like a taxi service. There's no way around that unless you withdraw from certain international conventions. But unless you're prepared to go down that route and you allow people to drown, then you could be charged with involuntary manslaughter, and that's the danger there. But there's a very simple solution. If you detain and deport people once they arrive, you create a deterrent effect and people stop crossing the English Channel. Unless we have that, then more and more records are going to be broken.
And Mike, are you also struck, as I am, by another grim new trend, and that is the sheer volume of individuals on these boats? Now, Mark White there is talking about 70 people on a craft. I mean, that's a disaster waiting to happen. They're simply overloaded. They can't cope with that.
Yeah, they're packed into boats like sardines in a tin. And the reason for that is because the French authorities have actually stepped up their game in Calais. They do apprehend boats. They do they look at camps that are there and try to dismantle them. So there's a very limited window of opportunity. But what the gangs do is they outsource the risk onto the migrants. So it's in the gang's interest to pack these people into boats as tightly as possible. But of course, that increases the risk of fatalities. And it's just a matter of time before we have another catastrophic event.
Well, I hope you're wrong, but I fear you may be right. Mike Jones, thank you very, very much for joining us today. And also thank you, Adam Cherry, back here in Westminster. Now, coming up, David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, today pledged £120 million, not to Birmingham, but to Sudan, claiming it's vital for our national security. But how does giving millions to Africa make Britain safer? And should charity begin at home? That's next with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News, Britain's News Channel.